Hello whisky fans and welcome back. Today I've got a little review of a lesser known independent bottling. You may not have heard of it before. I think this is the kind of thing which is probably lesser known of in casual whisky circles, but probably very familiar to the more discerning whisky fans, the kind of people that watch my videos, the kind of people that know their whisky and have their finger on the pulse. There's been quite a lot of hype about this one over the last, it's been out for a while, and a lot of people have been saying very good things about it. This is Thompson Brothers TB-BSW. So TB-BSW, I believe that stands for Thompson Brothers Blended Scotch Whisky. So let's have a quick look at what else we've got on the label. We know that this is 6 years old minimum. It says aged over 6 years, so at least 6 years and a day. We know that this is natural colour. We know that this is non-chill filtered, and we know that we're getting it at the gold standard of ABV 46%. So that is all the details, everything guaranteed on the label. So we don't have to guess, we don't have to ask anyone, we don't have to wonder if what we've heard about other batches applies to our batch. We just know. And Thompson Brothers do all of these things for just a blend. It's just a blended Scotch whisky. And everyone knows that blended Scotch whisky is the worst whisky, it's the least serious whisky, and it really doesn't matter. But Thompson Brothers even do that for just a blended Scotch whisky. So I would say that anyone who doesn't give us all of these details and guarantee it all on the label, whether it's a cheap whisky or an expensive whisky, those companies are not taking their products seriously. And they're not serious, no matter what the price point, about what they're trying to sell you. So why should you take them seriously? Not the case with this one from Thompson Brothers though. We've got all the details on the label. Fantastic work. Very pleased to see a dedication to quality from the Thompson Brothers. As for the price, this one is what I think is a very fair price. I bought this for £32. The only problem that you might have is that it does seem to be released in fairly small batches and it sometimes sells out a little bit quickly. It's not as bad as Springbank. It's not availability issues to the point where it's basically dead to us, but you may have to wait a little while or do a little bit of digging to actually find somewhere that has this. So blended Scotch whisky. So from that we know exactly what's in the bottle. In theory, don't we? We know that there's going to be at least one single malt and at least one grain whisky gone into this, even if it is just teaspooned. So it may be that common thing that a lot of distilleries and spirits brokers do where they want to offload some casks but they don't want the name of the original distiller attached to it, so they theoretically put literally a teaspoon of other whisky so the buyer can't put the name of the original distillery on the label. Always possible. If we actually look at the label, we will see that there is, I think, a very quaint and wonderful drawing on there of a single pot still, a cask, and 3 what look like column stills, continuous stills. So they are kind of implying on the label that this is proper blended Scotch whisky, possibly implying that it's not just teaspooned. Does the shape and number of those stills give us a clue as to where this is made? There are a lot of pot stills that look like that. Maybe someone else can chime in. Is that a clue? Not sure. Just show you a close-up of the back label so you can pause that and have a read if you see fit. I have no idea where that QR code takes you. I assume the Thompson Brothers website. And that's about what we're told, which is pretty much everything we need to know. So let's get some in the glass and see if it's any good. Wonderfully humble presentation, but it's a presentation that I think it's a little bit old schooly, a little bit old timey, humble, simple, gives you all the details. I really like it. So that is that natural colour that we were told about, that we had that guarantee of on the label. Thompson Brothers TB-BSW on the nose. Extremely nutty and fudgy and chocolatey. Lots and lots of very sweet fudge on the nose. Hazelnut, walnut, Christmas cake. As well as being quite umami, quite savoury. Getting a bit of a note of soy sauce and like fried shiitake mushrooms on the nose. As well as some bitter cocoa on the nose mixing in with that chocolatiness. I'm going to say that it is ever so slightly hot on the nose. It has a little bit of a hot prickle, but really nothing that is a problem. Some bitter orange on the nose, which is always something that I quite often get with heavy sherry. Bitter oranges and some orangey malt. As well as a little bit of a note of burnt gunpowder, so firearms, fireworks, things like that, which is possibly a little bit of a hint that there is some sulphur in this, a little bit of good sulphur on the nose, which some people really don't like. I think that in limited quantities, it's a nice little point of interest. Let's see how it tastes. Big burst of sweet caramel malt, slightly peppery and spicy on the palate. Again, a little bit of meaty sulphur, but I think that on the palate of this one, it's no longer hot. That slight prickle and slightly rough note that I nosed is not there on the palate. I'm just getting lots of milk chocolate and more nuttiness, hazelnut, raisins, so like Cadbury's fruit and nut notes, lots of caramel, a little bit of peppery European oak. Let's have one more sip. Slightly floral in the oaky side of this whiskey, but always very sweet and very interesting. More caramel and hazelnut on the palate. Despite the sweetness, there are lots of dark flavours in this. It's quite a dark flavour profile. Lots of dried fruits and nuttiness, and a really lovely full syrupy mouthfeel. Gonna have one more sip and look at the finish. Bitter cocoa on the end of the palate and the finish, and especially that bitterness and the oak spice giving some really good body to the finish. Lots of sweet caramel and lots of fudginess. In my opinion, bearing in mind that this stuff is, when you can find it, it's on sale for just £32. I think that this is a cracking example for everything that can be great about heavily sherried whiskies. And that's not to say that heavily sherried whiskies is a guarantee of quality, because there are plenty of poor whiskies in first fill sherry casks out there. But I think that the quality of this shows the level of skill and good judgment and quality casks that have been put into this. The only sign of youth or any sort of imperfection that I was getting is that slightly hot note on the nose, but that really disappears by the time that you actually drink it. And I think that 46%, because some of the other Thompson Brother whiskies are a little bit higher than 46, but I think with this one, 46 was probably a very wise decision and probably the perfect ABV for this. I think that being bottled at 46% really gives you the full experience and bring those flavours alive. But I think that bottling it at more than 46 would probably not be necessary. Because it's me, we do have to talk about the elephant in the room. The only thing that's not mentioned, the only info that you might want that's not on the label, and that's where is this stuff from? Who made it? Because we know that it's an independent bottling. Thompson Brothers do have their own distillery, but this is not made at their distillery as far as we know. And there are rumours, whisper it, that this is Macallan. Now, I don't know about that. I don't have any inside information, but I will say that the heavily sherried, smooth and malty style of this is very close to what a lot of Macallan aims for. But what I'm going to say is, if this is Macallan, it is the best Macallan that I've had in years, because most of the modern official bottlings from Macallan is just absolutely crap value for money. A lot of it is not very good, and it's all massively overpriced. This stuff from Thompson Brothers, though, because of that presentation and the ABV, it is very, very good. Especially for the price that you have to pay for this. It's an excellent example of how great sherried whiskey can be. and is not just one of those crude examples of a flavour-dipped sherry maturation. It's the real deal. It's sherry that has some real depth and character and integration with the spirit, and it's done for a reason. I also think that this whisky, contrary to what some people have said, is not just about the sherry, it's not just about the cask. I actually think that there's some quality spirit gone into this. I think that this TB-BSW, it's not cask dominated, although it is cask heavy. It's not 46% ABV sherry like some heavily sherried whiskies are, especially, and I'm talking about like some modern Glenallachie, in my opinion, replaces almost all of the spirit with cask influence, but not the case with this one. Some people have suggested that this is really a whisky which is all about the sherry cask. I don't necessarily agree. I think that it's more than that. Who is this whisky for? I mean, £32 with a full proper craft presentation guaranteed. It's for pretty much anyone, unless you hate sherry. And unless you hate bargains, this is a great one for anyone. I think that it's reminiscent of some of the better Glendronachs that we had a few years ago when Billy Walker resurrected that distillery and they're putting out the wonderful Glory Days 12, 15 and 21. I think that this will appeal to people that like those kind of whiskies, especially the Glendronach 12. I think that this is a fantastic replacement for that, because in my opinion, and a few other people's opinion, the Glendronach 12 is not what it used to be. In fact, I'd probably say that this is probably a better experience than a lot of the current batches of 12 and 15 that Glendronach are putting out. I think it's also quite similar to that Murray McDavid cask craft that I had in the Advent calendar, and it also probably scratches a similar itch to things like Edradour Caledonia and Bunnahabhain 12. I think that this is a fantastic flavour experience and a fantastic value buy, and I think if you're considering buying this, if it sounds good to you on paper, you just should. Let me know what you think about this one. I am probably going to do that rare thing that I don't generally have time for anymore because I have a busy whiskey schedule, but I'm going to possibly be looking at buying a second bottle of this because I like it so much, and I think that it's such good value for money. But let me know what you think if you've been lucky enough to have this one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, and cheers. Oh,